The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello and welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip. And CJ, you're muffled again in there. I don't know.
I don't know.
There we go.
This is CJ. Hi, how are you?
Back in the bomb shelter.
Yeah, well, you know, I've been a bad boy, I guess.
That's it. Banished because of technical difficulties the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
And now we need somebody in there that actually knows what the buttons mean. So
I have no idea anymore. I'm lost.
Well, you know, Fall River plods along. We have another, you know, we had the casino in Tiverton, which is almost like, you know, a suburb of Fall River, meeting. And I know, CJ, you attended that meeting, and it was fairly informative. The town council seemed to be up to speed. They knew what they were talking about, which is kind of a rarity. And what was your take on that meeting?
Well, it was very interesting, Chip. First and foremost, I think the thing that scared me the most was the fact that people were civil. There was actual civility. There was no yelling, screaming, ranting, or raving. People were actually, you know, seriously engaged in this. The town council didn't open the meeting up to the citizens that were present for questioning, but the people from Twin Rivers did meet with the people during recess of the meeting and answered a lot of their questions. It seemed to be about a 70-30 split amongst the people that were present. I initially had calculated about 100, 125 people. The actual count came out more to about 150, 175, so I wasn't too far off. But I think what's very interesting is they made very specific comments in regards to what they're offering. And the one thing they said over and over again was, we are not trying for a $500 million resort casino. That cannot be sustained in this area. So obviously, these people knew that that was a pipe dream that Fall River was shooting for. And as a matter of fact, they specifically stated Fall River in several instances. I think the thing that really bothered me a great deal was the fact that no one from Fall River, except for one city council candidate, was present at this meeting. You would think that someone from Fall River would have shown up. Now, I know the mayor actually showed up for a meeting on Monday at the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association, so Captain Clueless did appear. But, you know, he could have sent Rob Bentleweski, he could have sent Lou Pacheco, just to hear what was being offered, just to hear what's going on. But then again, the mayor's already decided that he's going to fight this project, which has nothing to do with Fall River, on, you know, eco issues, because, you know, he was the eco DA, now he's going to be the eco mayor. But again, it was a very informative meeting. They have a plan, they're putting it in place. I was actually a little taken aback because they had their ducks in a row. They knew what they were talking about.
Wow, what a change from Fall. But, you know, give it time as far as a little acrimony. I'm sure once the debate begins about the casino, you'll have the anti-casino zealots out, and they'll be saying that they'll break into your house and steal money so they can put it in the slot machine and kill your dog and everything else. But you know, but the fact is, I think that it's extremely important. You know, again, you know, the mayor's talking about a tourism director, and as I've said time and time again, there's no way we're going to out-tourist Newport and the Cape. People are not going to stay here for any length of time. Oh, the power boats are coming, the power boats are coming. Oh, yes, well, people will come in, they'll watch the power boat races, they'll go to the vendors that are in the area, selling them hot dogs or whatever in the area, and they'll take it, they'll beat it. You know, it's not going to give a sustainable kind of boost to the city of Fall River. Listen, if power boats and one-time things really benefited the city of Fall River, we would be one of the richest communities in the state of Massachusetts, because the Holy Ghost Feast is one of the largest feasts in North America. They come down by the busloads from Canada. And how much impact does it really have on the city's economy? Virtually none. You have vendors on site, you have a few Portuguese restaurants in the area, and they come down by the busloads and they don't do anything. There's no appreciable spike. They make a few dollars, and that's about it. We need something that brings people in on a regular basis. That is what economic development is based on, not on one-time powerboat races or, or anything, NASCAR races or whatever you want to have. The fact is that tourism is a major industry in Newport in the summer. They have hundreds of thousands of tourists. They have hundreds of thousands of tourists in the summer at Cape Cod. If you go to Maine, along the coast in southern Maine, Portland, Old Orchard Beach, Algonquin Beach, they have hundreds of thousands of tourists that come down. They have so many tourists that they sustain most of those businesses for the entire year with what they make in the summer months. Now, okay, now you can say, okay, we can make an argument. Tourism is a major factor for those communities. But it's not, that kind of tourism is not. What we need is the mall concept. We need a hook that will bring people in and keep them here for an extended period so they will actually get out into the community and spend some money. And guess what? A casino would be that hook. People would come down, they'd stay for a few days sometimes, maybe a week. Who knows? It would bring people into the area. What's the largest community? Tiverton. There's not a lot of restaurants. They go to Fall River. You might get some runoff. But no, heaven forbid, let's oppose that. Let's not deal with reality. And that's what disturbs me about this city. It's almost, as I've said before, we want to keep this community poor. The rich and the movers and the shakers want to keep this substandard wages, substandard city, because they get rich and everybody gets poorer. And that's the problem in the city of Fall River. You're right. We should have had people from Fall River looking at Tiverton to see if it does come to have a plan to maximize what Fall River can get from a casino being 400 yards away from the Fall River line. It is appalling, the lack of vision and a lack of reality. And I'll get into that. That'll be my next thing. We had someone from, was it Georgia?
Georgia.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, I'll get into that in a little while. But, you can weigh in this, because to me, it's just, we have the pie in the sky mentality. We're going to save Fall River with a $500 million casino, and as they said, it's not sustainable. Everything we look at is not sustainable. But if we look at something that we can actually make a reality, the first thing out of their mouth is, not in my backyard, get out of here. They did it with the power plants. They did it with Polaroid. It's always the same in Fall River. We talk a good game, and when it comes down to the time to actually do something to move this city in the right direction, we don't do it.
I hear you, Chip. It makes it very difficult. But interestingly enough, that was just one of many things going on this week. As I said, the mayor did show up to the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association. I'm wondering, yeah, really, I know, hooray! But I'm wondering whose butt was kissed or who greased the palm of someone to get him there. It's very obvious that the Father Kelly Association and the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association, really rate with the mayor, because he never canceled on them. But Niagara, the Flint Neighborhood Association, he never showed up. Never showed up. And as a matter of fact, at the last meeting of Flint, somebody actually made a phone call, and Rob Bentleweski showed up and couldn't answer any questions. So that's the type of representation we have. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but, I call him like I see him. But, I was at a meeting yesterday, a legislative meeting, at UMass Dartmouth. And again, because of my commentary or the way I did it, I got vilified. It was in regards to healthcare, and some very interesting statistics came up. Did you realize that it takes 128 days for the average person in Bristol County, Massachusetts, more especially in the Fall River, New Bedford area, 128 days to see a doctor? They can't even get an appointment for at least 128 days. That's 3 months. That's a long time. And the people that were there from the Mass Nurses Association, and again, for full disclosure, I am a licensed nurse in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and several of the states, showing the restriction of practice being imposed on nurses by the Board of Medicine. And it's making it more and more difficult for patients to obtain care. So they have a bill, legislation pending, and many members of area delegations were present from New Bedford, from Taunton. I was surprised Sean O'Connell wasn't there. But I had contacted our local delegation, all three of them, and they all had scheduling issues. And you know what? Scheduling issues can be a problem. And I initially said on my post that I was there with pictures that none of the members of our delegation are present. And people started to attack them. They don't care, they don't care. Mike Roderick showed up late, but Mike Roderick's at least showed up. I went out of the way to gather the information together to mail to each member of the state delegation. I asked Mike Roderick while there to take the information to them at their meeting on Friday, because they meet every Friday in each district to have lunch. So he said, no, send it to the State House, otherwise they'll get lost. Okay. So I put them in envelopes to mail to the State House today. Don't you know, Allison, boy, you'll do anything to throw the state delegation under the bus. You called me at 6:17 p.m. about this meeting. I told you I couldn't be there because I just left WSAR from a live interview because I was talking about the budget and what I did for Fall River. Well, isn't that lovely? Not everything's important, and I understand that, okay? But more importantly, don't take everything personal, people. It just gets to be a little ridiculous. You weren't there, you weren't there. You had somebody willing to help you out. Whether you like me or not, I'm still willing to help you out, okay? And get you the information. And then, like you saying to me, I want to throw you under the bus. You're turning around, throwing me under the bus, saying, look at what you're doing to me. I sent text messages out to all three of our state representatives through that meeting, told them it. They all came back. They all said they support this idea. They support this legislation. I mean, the fact that Rosenberg, the Senate president, and DeLeo, the House Speaker, just happened to be pushing this legislation, I think may have a big deal on it too, but that's another story. But, we got to get involved in every aspect of government, not just Fall River.
Well, you're right, CJ, but it disturbs me when they say, scheduling conflicts. They all have staffs. I mean, I know they all have staffs. So you're telling me between the 3 state reps and the state senator, we couldn't find one staffer that could go there and attend and take notes and get the necessary information to pass on to the delegation? I'm not sure that that's accurate, but that's one of the problems we have with government. And I was encouraged because a whole bunch of people, whether you like them or dislike them, took out papers for city council and for mayor and for things, because guess what? That helps the process. It brings people in. Maybe some of them are the same old, some of them are new, but guess what? It's nice because it creates debate. It makes the incumbents support their positions, say why they deserve to be reelected, and it gives the public an opportunity to evaluate what is out there, what's available to change the way we do business. So I was very encouraged by that. I think you have a list, of the people who pulled papers, and I'm sure there will be more people pulling papers. But I think it is really, really encouraging to see that we're going to have a primary. It looks like we're going to have a primary in the city council race, which is always good. And hopefully we'll have a primary in the school committee race. and we'll probably have a primary in the mayoral race. So that's good because, as I said, it makes people have to say, this is why you should elect me. This is what I've done, or this is what I will do, and the people can say, well, you haven't done this, or I don't feel you've done a good job, and I think this person, we want to give this person a chance. So guess what? It's part of the process. I think it's good. I'm glad to see it, and whether I agree or disagree with anybody's position, I think it's always good to listen to other ideas, because I've had ideas that were very good come from people who I virtually agree on nothing with politically or philosophically, and that's the way we create new ideas. Fall River wants a bunch of lemmings. They want ducks that are imprinted on the mother. You follow your mother right off the bridge. It's like everybody has to think the same, or you're a negative person. You are you are someone who is holding back Fall River moving forward. Well, guess what? Fall River hasn't moved forward in a couple of decades, and it's not because of us. It's because we do the same old, same old. We need some new ideas. We need some new blood. We need a new direction, and we need to get our head out of our rumps.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I think one of the things, we'll go to the list. So far, no incumbents in city government, mayor, city council, or school committee, have taken out papers to run for office. Now, it's still early, because, papers were only made available yesterday. But some unknowns. Running for mayor is Christopher Bianchi. I don't know who he is. I've never met the gentleman. I think right off the bat, just from the fact that nobody knows who he is, he's going to have a big uphill battle on presenting, what he stands for, why people should elect him. And if it's the same Christopher Bianchi I found in my research, he needs a clothier and, maybe a good barber and shave. As for city council, though, at the top of the list we have Nancy Alves. Nancy also took out papers for school committee. And I think you said earlier, Chip, maybe she'd go for the trifecta. But then you have Richard Branco. I believe he also uses Turpinning Branco, former veteran. Ron Cabral, the usual and customary. Jason Caminiti. Jason came out earlier this year. Doug Cavallo, who I've never heard of. Russell Desbine, again, another oldie but goodie. Scott Donnelly. Joshua Font, who we've actually had on this show, and he's also been on the Richard Urban Show. Trot Joseph Lee. Paul Machado. David Mead, again, another oldie but goodie. Cliff Pont, local realtor here in Fall River, and Joshua Silva, who is a local businessman and part of the recall process back in December. So that's as of 9 o'clock this morning, that's the list so far. That's 13 people who are not incumbents running for city council. So if you add 9 more to that, we do require a primary. There's no question about that. Now, accordingly, the rumor mill, which is pretty accurate as we know, is saying that Jazel Correa may be running for mayor. He's had meetings throughout the city with some of the big boys, as I like to call them, people who don't like me. But I think that, in regards to that, I don't know if the city's ready for another under 30 inexperienced mayor, especially a gentleman who hasn't even truly been elected to office yet. So, that's a little different. But it's going to be interesting to see how this race lines up and where it's going to go. That's for sure.
Well, we had one under 30 who had never been elected to office, elected mayor, and we saw where that got us. But hey, who knows? Let's see what happens but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have very vigorous, very vocal races. I'm a strong proponent of vigorous debate. Whether I like you or dislike you, I don't care. Maybe it's because I enjoy arguing, It's kind of a hobby, and I really enjoy it, and I like to debate. And the fact is, I think that it encourages thinking. Even if you disagree with somebody, and you really disagree, after that debate's over, and you go back, and you most of the time people rehash it in their mind. It brings up some alternative perspectives, and maybe even an idea that because they said it, you didn't agree initially, but when you think about it, you go, something, a little tweak to that idea in it, it might be something that's workable. And, that's the way we move forward. But now I'm going to get into my little thing. We had one of our viewers from, was it Georgia? Georgia. So I assume, and I should never assume, but okay, let's say I will deduce that at some point in time he has a connection with Fall River, because he said something to the effect that we should have a program that has nothing but positive things to say about Fall River, and that we always talk about what's negative and things. And okay, that's great. But let me begin by saying I don't think we could fill a half an hour with positive things about Fall River. And if that's the case, they are positive, so we don't need to work on this. This is a show that has, sometimes we lead the news, sometimes we tell you what the news is, but we also give you a very large dose of political commentary because we think it's a necessary thing. Just to know what's happening is not enough. You have to look behind the scenes to see why it's happening, and because in many cases, that's what's wrong with government. And our viewer can have his opinion, and it's great. But the fact is, when something good happens in Fall River, we do mention it. I mentioned about the Fall River product, who now is the strength and conditioning coach for the heavyweight champion of the world. When something good happens, we mention it. But they happen so rarely. That's not why we're here. We're here to talk about politics and government and news as it relates to the people. We want to get to the bottom. We want to get, behind the headline. We want to get into the story, into the whys and wherefores of what happens here. Because the reality is, I feel, and it's my opinion, that government is a necessary evil. I don't believe that government is a great thing. I think it's something that's necessary. We need it to promote the general welfare and to do all the other things that are necessary. But that's all we need it for, to provide us with a mechanism to enforce the laws, to provide essential services. But the problem we have in this country, in my opinion, is that government has created its own culture. Government is now an entity. It's like it's alive, and it is overrun with political hacks. It's become an employment agency. It's become something that works against the people most of the time. And frankly, if I had my way, I would eliminate everybody in government every 3 or 4 years and put somebody new in. It should be like when we began this nation. Farmers put down their plows, shoemakers put down their hammers, and they picked up a rifle and they fought for this country. And they created this country. And then some of them went back to doing the business. Other ones became politicians, but they didn't make it a lifetime vocation. I'm appalled when I look behind the scenes and see what goes on in politics. When I see people that spend their life in Boston sucking the public dole and then getting a job for $120,000 so they can boost up their pension to almost $100,000, a virtual no-show position, and then they leave and their daughter gets it. And I can tell you one thing, we can do a lot more than a half hour about what's going on that, and that's the problem. The problem is that we've allowed them to create their own world. They are monarchs. We don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional monarchy. And the monarchs are the congressmen and the state reps, because guess what? They take care of themselves. You want to cure the health care problem in this country? Give the congressmen our health care. They have the best health care in the world. And you're not taking that away from them. What incentive do they have to fix health care? None. It doesn't affect them. There's no self-interest. Our state delegation, they care about you and your money? Really? Many, many years ago, when we used to have to approve their pay raises, they had the great Halloween massacre. They voted themselves a pay raise, and they virtually wiped the state out. So what did they do? They created a mechanism where they give themselves the pay raise any time and any amount they want. You think government works in your best interest? I don't think so. You worry about somebody getting a block of cheese, but big business, who are in bed with big politicians, will charge you $600 for a $12 toilet seat and will make billions off of your back, and you don't care. That's why we have this show. So we can give you the real story and maybe wake you up and get you pissed off enough to do something about it. That's my rant.
Your rants are always great, Chip. And, I think you said it very well to me the other day. Take a Kennedy and stick him in a 3-decker on the 3rd floor for a year and give him $20 a week to live on, and you'll see how fast they change their opinion of how to live. But it's definitely going to be interesting over the upcoming days and weeks as we look at Fall River and its political scene and who's going to run. But I want to also give a shout out, and again, my ignorance has been kind of inexcusable. We have some sources and some people who want to work on making Fall River a better place, specifically in the Carolinas. And I've been so busy this week, I failed to call them up and get a lot of information. So I want to make it very clear that they will be contacted in the next day or two, and we will address some of their concerns, because they're former Fall Riverites, but they no longer are here. There's a job fair going on right now down at Government Center. And as I was driving into the studio, one of the things I heard was that, Fall River is my hometown, and that's wonderful, but they don't live here. And companies that are being interviewed are saying, oh yeah, we're expanding, we're in North Attleboro, we're opening in Warwick, we're opening in Boston, we're opening. None of them said Fall River. That's going to be coming up, because I have been doing some real deep research into why businesses don't come to Fall River, why the car dealerships have pulled out. And believe me, we've spoken about the reasons before. Now we're getting, because I don't want to be called a fabricator, I'm bringing the actual physical evidence in, and we're going to talk about it, because it's necessary that we have this out there so people understand why Fall River is in the situation it's in.
Well, you're right. And the thing is that, look, we're pragmatists here. We're not pessimists. We're not optimists. We're pragmatists. We see what we look at the picture, and we see it as it is. And you have to be objective. We don't have rose-colored glasses, and we don't have dark glasses or clear lenses. We're looking at what happens. You look around and see what government has become, this giant bureaucracy, this giant gridlock, which is intentional, because the reality is the only choices we have are paper or plastic or green bag, and they make you think you have a choice, and the reality is they do whatever the hell they want to do, and then they want you to thank them for it. And the only way it's ever going to change is if we all get together and create term limits by voting them out every so often.
I agree. Hey, thanks for watching Spindle City Straight Talk. We'll see you on Friday.
Stay involved.